You cannot love someone and control them at the same time. If you are trying to control people, of course you're going to feel like you're under attack because people do not want to be controlled. And that's when you're talking about this mindset of masculinity, the cult of masculinity, it's about controlling people. You're told as a kid, dominate, control. Let me tell you, there are people who feel like if everyone in this room is not uncomfortable, we're not working.
Mr. Burgundy, you are acting like a baby.
I'm not a baby, I'm a man.
You are not a man. You are a big fat joke.
I'm a man who discovered the wheel and built the Eiffel Tower out of metal and brawn. That's what kind of man I am. You're just a woman with a small brain. With a brain a third the size of us. It's science.
Where are we?
Right now you're in a kind of a limbo. You're neither here nor there.
Where exactly am I? Between light and shadow.
Hey kids, welcome back to Between Light and Shadow, a Twilight Zone podcast, where we are ruthlessly examining all 10 episodes of the first season of Jordan Peele's new incarnation of Rod Serling's classic series. That wasn't exactly our intent when we started out, however. After an extended sabbatical of over a year, we were poised to return and resume our standard shtick, covering episodes from the historic first season of the original series, which ran from 1959 to 1960, pairing them with similar episodes from later in the series run, 1960 to 1964, as a compare and contrast exercise. But then this new series started up, and we'd been out of the game for so long, it made sense to ease our way back into things by doing some, maybe, cursory reviews of the new episodes, just to get back into the swing of things, then return to our original format fully charged. Now, there are 10 episodes of the new series, so the plan was to hit 2 of them at a time, since we weren't planning on going that deep with it. And that worked for the first 2 episodes, The Comedian and Nightmare at 30,000 Feet, but then the 3rd episode, Replay, happened, which I liked enough to spend more time on, so that one got the full spotlight treatment. But the next 2, A Traveler and The Wonderkind, kind of pissed me off, so I returned to the twofer approach for those. Now, episode 7, Not All Men, was supposed to be the back half of episode 6, 6 Degrees of Freedom, but I ended up loving that one, so I decided to give it its own episode too. My intent was then to cover Not All Men and Point of Origin together, but I ended up writing a lot more than I'd planned to for Not All Men, so I'm trying to keep the show around an hour or less, so, well, Not All Men gets its own spotlight too. But does that mean it's on the same level as Replay and 6 Degrees of Freedom? Well... Not All Men premiered on May 9th, 2019. It's directed by Christina Cho, who is mostly known for her short films, but has lately branched out into television. She directed an episode of the Hulu original series The Act, which I haven't seen, but my daughter, Kendall, who loves true crime stuff, said I should watch it. She also said that I should watch Riverdale, though, so yeah. Not All Men is written by Heather Anne Campbell, who, wait, the same Heather Anne Campbell who co-wrote 6 Degrees of Freedom? She wrote back-to-back episodes? That's really cool. Now, I mentioned last time, confessed really, that I have a bit of a crush on her, but that was for her comedy and improv stylings, and she's now written or co-written 2 Twilight Zone episodes? Clearly somebody clued her in on the way to my grizzled old heart. I wonder if she's, married or anything. Let's see. Oh. On October 11th, 2018, she came out on Instagram as part of National Coming Out Day. So even if I was, say, available, yeah, I got nothing she wants or needs. Damn it. I mean, it's okay to have a crush on someone even if they're of a different sexual orientation, right? I mean, what harm can it possibly do? Oh no. I just realized that I played the TZ Babe jingle in her honor last time. You know the one.
That chick that won't quit. It's like stacked, like beautiful.
You got me straight tripping, boo.
Do you think she'd find that offensive? She probably thinks I'm a total pig. If she's even hearing this, I mean. Hey, you never know. Maybe the staffers on this new Twilight Zone are listening to the various podcasts, to keep their fingers on the pulse of the public reaction. If I was producing a high-profile series, I'd want to hear the various reviews and whatever. Anyway, Ms. Campbell, Heather, if I may be so bold, if you're listening, I never meant to objectify you. I never meant for my heterosexual masculinity to become toxic. If that's indeed how you view this. See, I'm not really sure. Is finding a woman attractive and admiring her talent and finding her just plain adorable toxic? Are lesbians flattered if a straight guy has an innocent crush on them? See, I really don't know. Maybe it's not okay. Maybe I'm not as woke as I think I am. And maybe I shouldn't get so hung up on labels. In that same Instagram post last October, she said the following, quote, "The truth is, I kind of think identifying as anything is reductive and narcissistic. Hashtag identity feels like a tribal byproduct of consumerism, crushing us into tiny demographics so that we can be marketed to. If we belong to a group, then we might just buy what they buy, watch what they watch, etc. Any model for behavior is minimizing, and any identity that can fit on a bumper sticker is a slogan." End quote. That's interesting that she chose a pretty well-known hashtaggy phrase for the title of this episode, Not All Men, which is short for Not All Men Are Like That, or NAMALT, NAMALT. Hashtag NAMALT. We open in an office of some sort, and we see shots of various office-y objects. Gurgling water cooler, a copy of Sun Tzu's The Art of War, a hand clutching a stress ball, and a close-up of a post-it note with a time written on it. And since this is the new Twilight Zone, of course that time is 10:15. Because, hey, what else would it be? They've got to fit that number into every single episode someplace for some unknown reason. The name Dr. Romero is also written on that post-it note, so George Romero immediately came to mind, which isn't an Easter egg referencing the original series or other episodes in this new series, but I'm now conditioned to believe every little thing we see is somehow planted there to evoke connections, even subconscious ones. So, will there be zombies in this episode? I guess we'll see. There's a young woman on the phone with her boss. She is assuring him that she can get the test subjects ready.
We're doing a trial for that new medicated lip balm. I'm just organizing the placebo group.
The young woman is Annie Miller, just 2 months into her new job at an unnamed pharmaceutical company. Dylan, a higher up at the company, seems to have taken an interest in her.
Do you have plans to see the Perseids tonight? The meteor showers? It's supposed to be like the best light show in 30 years.
She seems a little bit uncomfortable, a little bit reluctant, but she agrees. That evening, at Dylan's place, there's romance in the air. We've got the soft glow of candlelight. We've got the flowing of wine. And we've got some soothing sounds coming from the hi-fi. It's a really obscure soul song from 1973 called Whole Lotta Your Love by a Canadian singer named Lee Hurst. Now, as far as I can tell, he only released this one single, then disappeared off the face of the earth. It's too bad. This is some good stuff right here. So Dylan and Annie have some lobster, share the wine, and watch the meteor shower. But suddenly, the meteors start crashing down really close to them.
One just hit the water tower.
Holy shit.
What's that?
Holy shit. Let's go check it out.
Because that's what you do when flaming projectiles are coming in hot at high speeds. You go check it out. This'll end well, right? They venture into the nearby woods and find a small pool of red liquid. Dylan reaches into it with his bare hand without hesitation and pulls out an avocado-sized rock.
That's incredible. Can you imagine 10 minutes ago that was in outer space?
Shouldn't that thing be hot as hell? It's a meteor that just hit the Earth. I don't care if it's in water, it should still be like really hot, right? At the very least, the water it landed in should be boiling. Unless these little guys aren't your typical space rocks. Meteorite acquired, they go back to the house, where Dylan puts on a Lionel Richie record to enhance the candlelit ambiance. I mean, points for vinyl, buddy, but Lionel Richie? Dude, come on. You're like half a cheeseball level from Kenny G territory there. You don't have any mellow John Coltrane in your collection? Some Chet Baker, maybe? Now, I've only known Annie for a few minutes, but I'm pretty sure Lionel Richie is not her speed. And aside from that, I've got to call bullshit for another reason. Dylan drops the needle at the beginning of the record, which, as owners of Lionel Richie's Can't Slow Down album can attest, is not where the song Hello is located. It's the last track on side 2. Now, I know this because I own a copy for sentimental reasons. Anyway, having set whatever mood he was going for, Dylan settles in and starts putting the moves on Annie.
This is really embarrassing, but I've been dying to ask you out.
Really?
He leans in for a gentle kiss, and she reciprocates. But he quickly becomes more insistent, more aggressive, and yeah, pretty handsy. So she pumps the brakes on the makeout session.
And thanks so much for the great night, but I really do need to get home.
You're not into it? I'll do you first.
You dick! Head out.
Wait, are you thinking I'm trying to fuck you?
Dylan, stop it. Everything's cool. I need you to listen to me. I really like you. And look, we work together. I want to see you again. It's just, what's the rush?
I don't care, man. If the woman says no and you don't listen to her, it's rape. Plain and simple, case closed.
No means no. Period. No matter when it's said. No matter how it's said.
Yeah, you tell him, Joe. And you too, Sinbad.
You're right, I'm sorry. It's totally cool. Thank you for coming over. And I will see you tomorrow.
Okay. Thanks for everything. Bye.
She leaves. Once she gets past the driveway, she hears... She turns back and sees, through the window, Dylan throwing furniture around in a fit of rage, like a total crazy person.
Meet Annie Miller. Annie has always seen the world as a place where she could maintain control if she just played by the rules. But tonight marks the beginning of a change, both in her and in the idyllic town she's always called home. On the eve of her sister's birthday, Annie will be forced to contend with an event well out of her control, and a simmering violence about to boil over into the Twilight Zone.
There it is, the usual musical stinger, back at the front of the episode where it belongs.
Only hours after the meteor shower, the Little Red Rocks have already become sought-after memorabilia here in the town of Newberry. We're already counting several public and private Facebook pages dedicated to enthusiasts showing off their little pieces of history. And of course, the celestial visitors have sparked more than a few...
The next day, Annie starts noticing some strange things around town. Men seem frustrated, even angry everywhere she looks, including a guy having trouble sticking a straw into his to-go cup from...
E is for egg!
Yep, you guessed it, the Busy Bee Diner, making its third appearance in this series. It's an Easter egg because it's a callback to the Busy Bee Cafe, which was first seen in the original series episode, Nick of Time. Now, that sister Jordan Peele mentioned in his intro is Martha, and today is her birthday. So Annie goes to her house to celebrate. She's met by her nephew Cole, who manages to pry out of her that she had a lousy time with Octopus Hands Dylan.
It sucks. If only there was a way to figure out which guys were going to be assholes, you know? Wish I could kick his ass.
And what good would that do?
You know.
Why do guys always want to kick ass?
Because we're dudes.
Hey, I don't always want to kick ass. I'm more or less a pacifist. So not all men are... Aha! Not all men. Maybe the title has something to do with... Well, let's see how it unfolds.
This is my big, brave hero.
There's still some good men out there, okay? So let's just remember that.
Mm-hmm. There you go. Not all men.
You know, what's weird is terrine isn't technically a pate.
Okay, can you mansplain that to us some other time, dear?
Hey, man, get woke.
What were they, listening to me a minute ago? I get it. Get off my back. I'm trying. Get woke.
Oh, fuck!
What was that?
Next door, the neighbor has apparently sliced into his garden hose with his lawnmower.
Is there something in your water? Why is it red?
I called water power. They said it's like this everywhere. I mean, it seems harmless, but it smells like shit.
The ladies head out to meet up with some friends for birthday drinks. Some of the men at the bar are downing shots with meteorite fragments in them.
Shoot the stone! 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 Come on, shoot it! Shoot it! Shoot it! Yeah!
Which is, kind of gross, since they seem to secrete that mysterious red liquid. I guess drunk dudes will drink anything. I've certainly swallowed some questionable things in my drunker moments. Annie spots Dylan in the bar and is clearly uncomfortable, so she goes outside, where she finds her nephew and his boyfriend Steve scoring some beer for an underage booze binge. Now, it pains me to report that it's not Calumet Lager. It's something called Schlecht beer, which I haven't been able to verify actually exists, but here's the odd thing. On Amazon, you can get Schlecht beer coasters and a Schlecht beer lighted wall sign, but I couldn't find anything verifying that it's an actual beer. So you can get merch for a non-existent beer? Man, that sounds like something out of the Now, the word Schlecht is German for bad. Not sure what the significance of that is, but I can't deny that I'm a bit bummed that it's not Calumet Lager. So the boys are heading down to the pier to imbibe on Steve's dad's boat. Annie heads back into the bar where testosterone-fueled tempers are starting to flare.
Fucking hear me? I told you to stop fucking with me!
We see the angry dude's forehead veins bulge and his eyes turn red. It's like the guy is hulking out, like some alternate universe Bruce Banner who turns red instead of green. In short order, a full-on bar brawl breaks out, prompting the ladies to beat a hasty retreat. A leather-clad biker dude recognizes Annie.
Hey, aren't you that girl from work? It's me, Perry.
Yeah.
Real fucking polite.
What, you think you're so hot? Fucking bitch. Stop ignoring me, you fucking bitch! You dick!
E is for egg.
The biker dude's motorcycle helmet has the alien logo from the original series episode Black Leather Jackets emblazoned across it. It's interesting. That episode centered around a plot to poison the Earth's water supply as part of a planetary invasion. And here, the men are doing these meteorite-infused shots. Are the men being poisoned? Clearly, something beyond mere intoxicated macho displays of aggression is happening. So, Annie and Martha drive away, and the alien logo motorcycle guy follows them. After a tense few moments, they manage to shake him, and they head back to Martha's place. They have a little heart-to-heart in the car before going in, and then Annie tells Martha her theory about what's happening.
I know this sounds ridiculous, but I think it's the meteors.
The meteorites? It's not like everyone in town touched one.
Dylan had one. The guy at the bar took a shot with one.
And then they hear the sound of a motorcycle approaching.
Shit. Oh, shit. Come on! Okay, go!
The biker dude has found them. They race inside the house where Martha's husband Mike is waiting.
A man followed us and he is out there right now.
Wait, a man followed you and he's here?
Yes.
I'll handle it.
No, I don't think it's a good idea.
I said I won't handle it!
Mike, the get woke guy from earlier, goes outside to, be a man and protect the women or whatever. While Martha calls 911, Annie watches out the window in terror as Mike beats the biker dude to a bloody pulp, Negan style. Annie does the sensible thing and locks the door.
We have to leave now. Out the back. Wait, what are you talking about? Mike is out there. We can't leave him.
Mike is sick.
What?
It's not just him. He has the same signs as a lot of people. It's the meteors. And it's just the men.
They argue for a bit, then Martha goes to let Mike in, but he's not there. He did the sensible thing and came in through the back. He's covered with blood, and he's clearly not himself.
It felt good letting that guy have it. Yeah, it felt real good.
He gets a nice, tall glass of refreshing red meteor water from the tap. With a crazed look in his eye, he lights the candles on Martha's cake.
Honey, blow out the candles, but don't forget to make a wish. Do it, please.
You want to, Mike?
Do it!
His hand wanders dangerously close to a butcher's knife laying nearby. Terrified, Martha blows out the candles, but he clearly isn't placated.
I just saved you two from a fucking psychopath. How about a little thank you? Maybe next time you don't lead a lunatic to my house. 2 girls drinking at a fucking bar? You're asking for it.
He seethes with rage. His forehead veins throb. His bulging eyes turn red. He grabs Annie by the throat and commences strangling her. Martha clocks him twice with a frying pan, and they flee the house, passing the biker dude's bludgeoned body on the way out. They back out of the driveway, only to be hit by an oncoming car. The driver of the other car is unconscious, maybe even dead. Sirens wail in the distance. A shell-shocked woman staggers past, clutching a clump of hair in her hand. Annie and Martha set out on foot to find Cole as the world seems to go crazy all around them.
Oh my God, what's happening? This is crazy. Annie, we have to do something.
Martha picks up one of the meteorites.
These things are making them stronger. We have to try. Okay? We have to fight back.
She squeezes the meteorite desperately between her hands, hoping to somehow tap into its power. For a moment, it seems like it may be working. And then...
Fuck! It's not doing anything!
Martha, you know why. It's just the man.
Si tu ne m'aimes pas, si tu ne m'aimes pas, je
As they run through scene after scene of destructive machismo gone amok, they observe the bizarre, almost comedic sight of a group of men splashing around in a fountain like animals doing some sort of ritualistic dance, screaming primally into the night. The use of habanera from Carmen in this scene underlines the absurdity on display. Did I say underlines? I meant highlights it in neon yellow, then circles it repeatedly with a fat black Sharpie. Meanwhile, at the docks, Steve is doing push-ups in the boat, apparently trying to prove that he's strong and virile, worthy of Cole's affection and attention.
Are there pants?
They said you'd prefer just a shirt. Apparently you have a need to swing your dick around?
He then shoves a meteorite into a bottle of beer like a lime slice into a Corona and hands it to Cole.
Ooh! I'm telling you, baby. Changes you. Makes you stronger. No, I actually don't really want to drink that. Why not? Come on.
But Cole doesn't want it, nor is he receptive to Steve's physical advances. In an interesting parallel of Annie's date gone wrong with Dylan, Steve gets aggressive and insistent, then angry when he doesn't get what he wants. As with the other men in town, his forehead veins throb and his red eyes bulge. Martha and Annie arrive just in time to see Cole exit the boat, crying.
Steve, he just went crazy. I don't know what I did.
You didn't do anything, honey. It's not your fault. It's the meteorites.
I swear he's a good guy. He was just obsessed with that stupid fucking rock.
And then Dylan shows up. He's got a long chain tied around his waist with a big red meteorite attached, dragging behind him.
Why don't you like me?
Oh, I don't know, Dylan. Maybe because you're an attempted date rapist and you have really shitty taste in music? He wraps the chain around Annie's neck. Man, this poor girl's neck is having a really rough night. That's twice now she's been throttled. Cole panics at the sight and appears to start transforming like the other men. But Annie's not waiting to be saved. She gets a good nut punch in, and as Dylan staggers in bruised testicular agony, she gets a hold of the chain and clocks him upside the head with the meteorite end. Twice. She then pushes him into the water. In a pretty spectacular underwater shot, we see Dylan sink as the combined weight of the chain and the meteorite pull him down into the depths. Cole snaps out of it, and the trio huddles together as a small squad of military types show up to rescue them. Sometime later, they're inside an emergency medical tent.
No organic compounds in this one. Parasites, no bacteria.
Then it must be chemical. The meteors, the water, it's the only commonality amongst these men. Something caused this.
Maybe there is no cure.
She's right.
Honey, don't say that. Dad's gonna be fine.
Yeah, except he bludgeoned a dude to death on his front porch. I'm not sure a jury's gonna let him off the hook for temporary space rock insanity. Oh, also, he tried to strangle your aunt.
They're not gonna find anything because there's no disease. The meteors, they were a placebo.
There's no cure because it'll always be inside me.
You stopped yourself from turning. I saw you.
That's the thing. I just chose to.
On their way out, a soldier asks to see their IDs. He smiles at Annie.
You know, I bet you'd look much cuter if you smiled.
What did you say?
Why don't you try it sometime?
You dick!
No.
Back in the tent, we find Jordan Peele, conveniently on hand to offer us his parting words.
Tonight, Annie Miller found herself in the center of a mysterious and violent epidemic. What she encountered was no material disease, but rather a plague of conscience. One that gave men permission to ignore decency, consent, and fear. And tonight, all it took was a few innocuous little rocks to turn men into monsters. Here, in the Twilight Zone.
Again with the stinger. They used it twice this time. Not All Men is probably the simplest tale thus far presented on this new Twilight Zone, and that's not necessarily a dig. Several of these episodes have had too much going on, as if they grafted on additional scenes and story turns to pad out the running time. But this one clocks in at a fairly brisk 42.5 minutes, and therefore doesn't really have time to go off on a bunch of tangents. It's basically a linear flight horror film, but instead of our heroes being pursued by a horde of hungry zombies, they're accosted on all sides by physical embodiments of toxic masculinity. Manly men, in other words.
Men, manly men.
I mean, I'm pretty sure John Cryer never bludgeoned anyone to death in a fevered rage. But Charlie Sheen?
Tired of pretending like I'm not special. I'm tired of pretending like I'm not bitching a total frickin' rock star from Mars. And people can't figure me out. They can't process me. I don't expect them to. You can't process me with a normal brain.
Rock star from Mars. Normal brain. Rocks that affect the brain. Mars. Heather Anne Campbell wrote or co-wrote both this and last week's Mars episode. Maybe she was subconsciously inspired by Charlie Nah, never mind. That's just dumb. But come on, how fun would it have been to see Charlie Sheen at some point at the height of the rioting, being interviewed on TV or something, saying he knew this day would come?
Duh. Winning.
Now, every single episode of this series has in some way incorporated a current political or socio-political hot-button topic. Let's see. So far we've seen the Second Amendment, the evils of social media, white cops targeting black motorists, Russian collusion, Trump equals obnoxious man-child, humans killing the environment and therefore exterminating themselves, and now we've arrived at toxic masculinity. Now, like most of that list, it's a provocative subject that is sure to polarize viewers, and I imagine there are some male viewers who feel personally targeted by this episode, and who may even refuse to watch the show anymore in retaliation. Now, I usually try to stay away from online reviews or podcasts covering the episodes before I tackle them, and then after I release each episode, I listen to several of them just to see if everyone else's take is similar to mine. Same goes for social media. I avoid the comments on, say, Facebook, because I want my reaction to be as honest as possible, not colored or influenced by the opinions of others, including people whose opinions carry a lot of weight with me. But with this particular episode, I found myself incredibly curious about how male viewers were reacting, so I broke my rule and checked out some comments on the official CBS Twilight Zone Facebook page, and I thought it might be fun to share a few of them here. Names have been changed to protect the innocent.
The severe case of butt hurt.
Somebody better call the ambulance.
I was subscribed. I was enjoying watching all the episodes. After I watched this one, I unsubscribed. I could go watch children's television and get better storytelling than this incarnation of TZ. I mean, give me a break. It wasn't the meteors that poisoned the men, it was toxic masculinity. Oh my god, and the only people who weren't affected were the women and a gay guy. Gee, seriously? Cancel it. I'm done giving CBS my money. Ruined Star Trek. Ruined Twilight Zone. These male feminists and female ones are worse than the Nazis. They desperately want eugenics reform. This is why I'm maintaining the good fight. So I took it that men were affected, but the homosexual was not because he had feminine genes, correct? Toxic masculinity? No thanks. I have no interest in watching this crap with BS liberal catchphrases like that nonsense. I'll gladly keep my money. I'm too cool and too masculine to pay attention to garbage like this. Did I say names were changed to protect the innocent? Sorry, that should have been to protect the idiots. Wow, guys, way to prove the point of this episode. Wouldn't it have made more sense and been more productive to respond diplomatically and intelligently instead of acting like the very blustering, hostile a-holes that the episode is taking a stand against? Put another way, y'all are seriously offended by a TV show? It's fiction. I mean, sure, it's fiction as social commentary, but still, of all the things in the current socio-political climate that you could be offended by, and by God, there are many, this pushes your buttons? This sets you off? It's unfortunate that these overreactors are too deep up their own macho asses to realize that the underlying message is indeed a valuable one. Boiled down to a few simple words, it's, guys, don't be misogynistic pricks. I mean, this is clearly a female perspective we're seeing, but it's not just about how men treat women. There's also the matter of how men treat other men. How, for some men, everything is a pissing contest, or a dick measuring contest, or an I'll kick your ass if you don't acknowledge my superiority exercise. So maybe the actual message is, guys, don't be pricks, period. The Facebook comments make it abundantly and sadly clear that some guys just aren't going to hear it. The triggering on display is just ridiculous. As for me, I absolutely agree with the episode's sentiments, even though I'm a beer-swilling, pork-rind-eating, heterosexual male who is preoccupied with... which I maintain is the result of a genetic disposition that I have zero control over. I'm not going to apologize for finding women sexually desirable. I mean, some women, not all women. I saw several Facebook comments demanding that they do a counterpoint episode and call it Not All Women. But I kind of think they should. But somehow have it still be about how dickish guys can be, just to trigger them all over again. You can have that one, Jordan Peele. No charge. Just give me a story credit so I can get my Writers Guild card. But seriously, I don't think the episode is in any way chiding me for my preoccupation with women, which is not the same thing as objectifying them, says the guy with the boobs jingle. My lustfulness is more or less benign.
Okay, listen to me. If I can't help the fact that the only thing that interests me more than motion pictures is the fairer sex, okay? I love women. I love everything about them. I love their inner secrets, their desires. I love sharing with them, you know? I mean, I'm sorry, but you can only do that through experience.
I like the relative unresolvedness of Not All Men. We're left with this town in ruins, post-man rioting. Property has been destroyed, people have been hurt, people have been killed. The military is on site, presumably restoring order. But how do you really restore order, especially if the men are apeshit crazy? Or are the effects of the meteorites temporary, like a 24-hour flu bug or something? There's no indication that they've come up with a cure, and there's no indication that the men have returned to normal. How are the military guys not affected? There's a much bigger story here. So, do I like Not All Men? I'm fine with it. It's not bad. It's not great. It's fine. The heavy-handedness is back in full force, so I do have to docket a point for that. And I've got to docket another point for the quote-unquote revelation at the end.
They're not going to find anything because there's no disease. The meteors, they were a placebo.
Huh? What's that now? A placebo? Yeah, I don't buy it. We saw the men's behavior change, significantly change, when exposed to the meteorites. And if the meteorites had no effect on them, why would they suddenly become violent? Not just violent. We saw the veins in their foreheads visibly throbbing, and their eyes weren't merely bloodshot, they were red. This just suddenly happened out of nowhere with no catalyst? This is merely toxic masculinity raging without filters, without boundaries, and it just coincidentally and conveniently erupted within all or almost all the men in town immediately after the meteor shower? So, is the message that toxic masculinity is contagious? So if one or a few guys act out, all or almost all the other guys will follow suit? Please, I don't buy it. Up until that point, mere moments before the end, I was on board with the whole thing. Now maybe if Annie had said, maybe it's not a disease, maybe the meteorites were a placebo, but she didn't. Her statement was, well, a statement. Definitive, no question. But if that's really the explanation, then I'm way less on board with this episode than I thought. I choose to take it as one character's interpretation, based on her experience. Remember, she almost got date raped by someone she trusted the night before, and I think anyone would be suffering from some level of PTSD by this point. For me, the rocks were the culprit, but the seed of violence, that was inside the men all along. Yeah, I like that way better. Now, given this show's tendency toward leftist political finger-pointing, I wonder if the rocks are intended as a metaphor for Donald Trump's exploitation and amplification of that violent seed that lurks inside all men. For the record, I'm not saying I necessarily disagree with that sentiment. I just think that more often than not, this show is too blatant, too on the nose. I've said as much several times since we started covering this new series. One of the marvelous things about the original Twilight Zone was the lack of partisanship, even though it explored many political topics. Serling definitely leaned toward the liberal side of things, but he was able to couch things in much broader terms. The failings on display weren't Republican or Democrat. They were human failings, and therefore applied to everyone. If there was a finger being pointed, that finger favored no particular ideology. But I guess I'm doing a bit of assuming on that point. To my knowledge, no one on the show has stated that the reddish rocks are in fact designed to evoke Trump. Now, if the rocks were orange... But about those red rocks, which turn everything they touch red, it's a nice visual choice, since we tend to equate the color red with anger, or danger, or alarms, or red alerts, or blood. As much as I bristle at Annie's placebo crap, I do like the episode's parting thought right after that. Men ultimately have a choice. They can work on being respectful, kind, gentle. They can strive to keep their violent caveman impulses in check. Having the capacity for ego-driven assholishness doesn't mean you have to indulge it. Just, make an effort, my dudes. Look, it goes without saying, but I'ma say it anyway, that men and women are different creatures. Part of what has propagated the species for millions of years has been men asserting dominance over women, which just fucking sucks. It's another ugly aspect of our human history, but it's there, and it's a powerful part of our genetic memory, that lizard brain in men that kicks in and makes us angry or jealous or ravenously horny or inexplicably driven to show other guys up, usually in front of women. We strut, we peacock, we puff up our chests, and it's all to make women want us. Now, I can't speak for gay men because I'm not one, but I'm sure they probably do the same thing. It's a guy thing, not a sexual preference thing. It's chemical, it's biology. And I don't think Heather Anne Campbell is suggesting that any of this is a bad thing necessarily. Obviously, the human race would have died out millions of years ago without men lusting after women. But guys, we can lust respectfully, even tenderly. That probably sounds goofy, but I believe it's true. We can want women without being jackasses about it. And I hope you all know that my TZ Babe jingle,
That chick that won't quit.
is not intended to disrespect or objectify women. It's mostly in jest. But like any attempt at comedy, there's a kernel of stoic truth at its center. Hi, my name is Craig, and I'm girl crazy. I'm almost 50 years old, and I'm unabashedly, incorrigibly girl crazy. I can't help it. You know what? I don't want to help it. Campbell's choice to title the episode Not All Men is interesting. It's an edited version of Not All Men Are Like That, a phrase that positively reeks of knee-jerking and posture balancing. The assumption that a woman describing how a man has mistreated her somehow reflects on anyone other than the jackhole that hurt her is arrogant. It's not all about you, dickhead. I almost wonder if she's being extra crafty here. I wonder if she's setting us men up to declare that not all men are like that, which would make us even bigger dicks, and not the kind that we stupidly think women wish we all had. Maybe that's the test of the episode. If you can get to the end, especially past that placebo bit, and remain calm and not take it personally and not shout at the TV that not all men are like that, then, well, you've passed the test. I don't know. And if any guys listening to this podcast are incensed and angered by my comments here, well, you've completely missed the point. You're going to be offended by a podcast? Come on, my bros. You're better than that. And if you aren't, you can choose to be. Choose to strive to be, anyway. See, I say that like I'm so flippin' enlightened, and yet my critique of this episode finds me defending myself. Against what? I don't hear anyone suggesting that Not All Men is about me, and yet it's important to me that I tell everyone listening that it's most certainly not about me. Why is that? I mean, how insecure can a guy be? Spoiler alert, a hell of a lot. The fact is, all guys are insecure. Not just some men, all men. Even the guy with the Gucci suit and the brand new Porsche Boxster and the perfect teeth and the immaculately manicured 2-day stubble and the washboard abs and the piercing blue eyes, even he's insecure. Because deep down he knows that a quality woman or man or whatever doesn't really care about all that window dressing, and he's unsure if he's good enough on the inside where it really counts. And I think that's part of why some guys are disrespectful. It's almost like they lash out as a preemptive defense. Before you can hurt me, let me just put you in your place. It's pathetic, but it's true, at least with some men. And I'm sure I've been guilty of this at one point or another in my life. I'm sure at some point most men, if not in fact all men, have done that. But as long as we can own it and try to do better, I think there's probably hope for us. Incidentally, a couple of anagrams for Not All Men are tell man no, which is what you should do when some sub-woke jerk says not all men are like that, and no tall men, which sounds like something President Oliver Foley would demand and somehow implement against all logic. There's also no lamb Lent, which is cute but not entirely accurate. You can eat meat, including lamb, during Lent, just not on Ash Wednesday or Good Friday or all the other Fridays. And yes, I know there's no B in Not All Men. This is an audio podcast, so you're supposed to focus on the sound of the words, not the spelling of them. So this episode, like the 6 that came before it, is well produced, well directed, well scored, well acted, well, everything. I continue to be amazed at the consistent level of quality across these episodes. The writing has really been the only shaky aspect throughout this series, but I've got to say, things are looking up. Not All Men isn't a near masterpiece on the level of, say, 6 Degrees of Freedom, but it's decent, except for that baseless placebo nonsense near the end. And maybe this is the high from 2 consecutive good episodes talking, but I wonder if perhaps time will soften my view of the other episodes. As I've pointed out before, reviewing the original series is easy, because I've spent decades with it. I know it, more or less, inside and out. But these are brand new, and it's really hard, at least for me, to view them on their own merits and not compare them with Rod Serling's original vision. 5 years, 10 years, 20 years from now, I may love this entire series. Hindsight, you know. I will say, despite the disappointments in the writing on some of these episodes, I have found myself looking forward to Thursdays. So, as negative as I can be, I clearly don't dislike this show. Part of me is sorry that it's only 10 episodes long, until season 2 starts, whenever that'll be. We should probably touch on the cast. Man, this always eats up a ton of time. I usually try to spread them out throughout the episode synopsis, but I clearly didn't do that this time. I'll tell you what, let's try something new. I'm going to get through the cast, all 5 of the main characters, in 1 minute or less, clips included. So, let's put 60 seconds on the clock. And go! Annie Miller is played by Taissa Farmiga, probably most recognizable from her work in several seasons of American Horror Story. More recently, she played Sister Irene in The Nun, one of the Conjuring spin-offs.
My father believed I was mentally unstable. Or worse, a liar.
Dylan is played by Luke Kirby, who's enjoyed a recurring role as none other than legendary comedian Lenny Bruce in the Amazon original series, The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel.
I wrote some jokes for her, never paid me. Good jokes, too. But she said her audience doesn't know the word cunnilingus.
Annie's sister Martha is played by Rhea Seehorn, who you may have seen in Better Call Saul and the most recent, and sadly final, season of HBO's Veep.
What kind of lawyer are you going to be? Are you going to play it straight, or are you going to be colorful?
Martha's husband Mike is played by Ike Barinholtz. He's probably best known for his 6-year run on the Mindy Project.
Where are you going? I was finally opening up!
And finally, Mike and Martha's son Cole is played by Percy Hines White, who up until recently could be seen on Fox's X-Men spin-off The Gifted.
Lauren and I have these dreams.
And with that, Cast Spotlight is done. Woo! Man, that was kind of exhilarating. I might start doing it that way all the time. Might even make a new jingle for it. 'Cause you can't have too many jingles, right? So that's our time, ladies and germs. If you're on the newfangled social media, I implore you to seek us out, like us, follow us, comment on our posts, and then share said posts. We're at ZonePod on Facebook, at Twilight Crab on Instagram, and at Zone Crab on Twitter. And if you're on iTunes, leave us a rating. 5 stars, please. Don't be stingy now. Or a review, or better yet, leave us a rating and a review. For more in-depth comments and or criticisms, email us directly at zonepod@gmail.com. We read and answer all of our emails, so fear not. Your messages will not fall through the cracks. So come back this way in 2 weeks, when we will aggressively investigate episodes 8 and 9 of this new Twilight Zone series, Point of Origin and the Blue Scorpion. I mean, that's the plan, anyway. As these last 2 installments have demonstrated, though, our plans are never really set in stone. Maybe these 2 episodes will be so spectacular that they too will merit their own individual spotlights. I don't know. But either way, we'll be back in 2 weeks. Until then, kids, don't drink meteorite-infused beverages. Make sure to keep your toxic masculinity in check. And as always, play nice.
Between light and shadow.